Hello everybody. I'm going to venture into some uncharted territory today. I have never been one to be a scholar of the Bible. Like, I've always wanted to be interested in reading it and always wanted to have the desire to read it, but I really never have, to be honest. But since I've been home with this quarantine, and especially the last week or so, I've really been praying and just feeling God in such a way that honestly I've never felt ever in my life before. It's just different this time. And so sometimes I get these thoughts, and sometimes I think, is that me or is that God? Well, if they're very smart, they have to be God because I'm not that smart. And so yesterday, I got what I felt like was a word for my friend concerning a situation that she has been going through, okay? And it came out of the 23rd Psalm, which is one of the Psalms that are a lot of people's favorites. And a lot of people can quote by heart. But if you start to delve into this, it's way deeper than even people realize. And I'm probably going to maybe test some theologies for people today. I don't know. But I spent about 6 hours last night and this morning studying this, doing my research, putting in note form, all that stuff. So I want to read it just like it is. I'm going to be using the King James Version of the Bible, and I'm going to be reading it out of that King James Version, and it is the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all of the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down verse by verse, okay? And I want you to pay close attention because a lot of times people don't pay attention to the punctuation that's in the Bible, okay? There are semicolons and colons throughout this whole chapter, okay? If you look up what a semicolon means, it's basically why. If there's a semicolon there, it's basically asking the question, why? Okay, so I took that in consideration when I did this, okay? So I'm going to start with verse 1, and the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So first of all, I asked myself, what are the primary duties of a shepherd? Okay, a shepherd, his primary responsibility is the safety and welfare of his flock. He is on call 24 hours a day. He protects the flock from predators, sometimes with the help of a guard animal. The shepherd will kill a predator if necessary to protect his flock. He monitors his flock to protect them from disease and sickness. He frequently checks on the baby ewes all hours of the day or night. Shepherds are also in charge of shearing the sheep in the spring. Okay. I shall not want. means I have everything I need. So here's my translation for verse 1. The Lord is the one who is responsible for my safety. He is always with me to provide all of my needs. He keeps me from all predators and diseases. He continues to keep me in check at all times. Even when I need pruning, I lack nothing. I have everything I need. Okay, verse 2. Verse 2 says, He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, colon. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Okay, green pastures, still waters, you know, there's nothing really too deep about that. That's green pastures and still waters remind me of peace and tranquility. So here's my translation for verse 2. He commands me to lay in peace. And there's the colon. Why? He leads me in the ways of tranquility. So basically, there's the answer to the question. He commands me to lay in peace because he leads me in the ways of tranquility. Okay. Verse 3. He restoreth my soul, colon. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So restoration was a word that has been in my brain since January 1 of this year. I was just, this year was going to be a year of restoration. I don't know why I felt that. I just did. I think it's because too many of us have been defeated long enough. We have been fighting battles with anything and everything. We fight battles every day, and we feel sometimes very defeated and almost tired, you know, ready to give up. So when January 1 came, restoration was like a blinking light in my brain. Restoration, restoration, restoration. So I looked up what restoration is. Restoration, there's two meanings, okay? The first one, the action of returning something to a former owner, place, or condition. 2, the second meaning. And when I was blown away at this one, okay? And if you got any kind of spiritual connection, you'll get it too, okay? Number 2, the meaning of restoration. The return of a hereditary monarch to a throne, a head of star to government, or a regime, which is a system imposed from above, to power. A regime, if you want to know what a regime is an authoritative government, a system or planned way of doing things, especially one imposed from above. That's the definition of a regime, okay? So, restoration, the return of hereditary monarch to a throne, a head of a star to government, or a regime to power, a system imposed from above to power. Are you kind of getting where I'm at with that? Okay. Okay. So, when you put the colon in there, and it says, He restoreth my soul, colon, asking why? For his name's sake. Not mine, not yours, not anyone else's, but his name. He leads me in the paths of righteousness. So my translation for verse 3, he returns my soul to the system imposed from above to its former place of power. For his name's sake, he leads me in the path of righteousness. Okay. Verse 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Okay, what is a valley? A valley is defined as a low area of land between hills or mountains, typically with a river or stream flowing through it. When we think of a valley, most of the time it has a negative connotation with it. It's a low spot. You know, people say, oh, you know, you're going through the valley of decision, or you're going through the valley of distress, or, you know, it's always got a negative, like people think bad when they think valley. You know, when you're on the mountain, that's when you're high and that's when you're great and blah, 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 whatever. But if you're in the valley, not so much, okay? Because sometimes it's dark and damp and there's lots of shade. Because valleys are usually formed because of the presence or is close to water. Water is significant. Water is life, okay? So I went on to define a shadow. A shadow, and this has got two different definitions as well. The first one, a dark area produced by anything coming between the rays of light and a surface. Second meaning, used in reference to proximity, ominous, oppressiveness, or sadness and gloom. So my translation for verse 4. Yes, despite the fact that I walk in the low area between the hills and beside the stream, in an ominous oppressiveness, I won't be afraid of profound immorality and wickedness that comes from the things beyond my understanding. Because you are with me, the objects you use, your rod and staff, to protect me from all predators and to lead me out of trouble will also bring me comfort. Verse 5. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Okay, and here's where we're going to get into some lengthy talking, because I wanted to think about it. Okay, okay, it says God will prepare a table before me. Okay, so when you think about God preparing a table, what do you think? Okay, I think that God's table is got the best. Like, it's got the finest of linen, tablecloths. It's silverware and candelabras are all of the finest silver and gold. The vessels that he has set at the table, the plates, the cups, the saucers, they are all the finest of china, the finest quality that you can put at a table, okay? God's not going to put no dollar store paper plates at his table. I'm sorry. He's just not. So then it got me studying, because I think of a vessel as the paper plates and not the paper plates, the plates, the cups, the saucers. But I also know that when the Bible speaks of a vessel, he speaks about us as well. We are earthen vessels, okay? So this is where my thought process got really kind of deep, and I wanted to kind of get into this, because to understand the making of a vessel and what it has to go through to become a vessel, okay? A vessel is an object used to contain liquid or other objects. There's three or actually, yeah, 3 definitions to this. I'm only going to tell you 2. The second one is a tube which the body circulates either blood or whatever. You have blood vessels, okay? Okay, well, we're going to talk about the one that holds liquid that has to be made, okay? Step 1, I'm going to go through the process of what it takes for a potter to make a vessel, okay? Remember that God is the potter, and we are the clay, and he is continually trying to mold us and make us into a vessel of honor, okay? So, the first step that a potter has to go with is the vessel starts with just a lump of dirt. The potter must go out and choose the kind of dirt that when mixed with water and sand will end up making the finest vessel. By the way, there is, what is there? 12 stages to this, okay? It's gonna be a minute. Okay, so step number 2, preparing the clay. The potter has to do a technique called wedging. It's a combination of mixing and rolling the clay to make it air bubble free. It's a process of kneading with a slight rotation that helps press out the bubbles. If those air bubbles remain, during firing, they can cause the clay body to break or even explode. Okay. So those first 2 steps, we can place that in our own. We are vessels of clay. The Lord made us out of dirt, okay? He picked the dirt, he mixed it with water, and he started to make a vessel. But he had to prepare the clay. And the pinching, it's called the wedging, the pinching and the kneading. Let me say this. There's 12 steps here, and I think probably all but maybe 1 or 2 are painful. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's true, okay? So the kneading and the wedging to get out the air bubbles. We feel that pressure sometimes on us when we're being pushed and shoved and prodded and pressured, and, you know, it's a lot for a person to take, but that's part of the vessel making process, okay? Step number 3. The potter puts the clay in the center of the wheel. If it's not centered, the vessel wall will have unevenness. The excess clay, also known as the hump, is then thrown off. So my imagination is if he's got the clay and he's going around in circles and he's forming it with his hands, and there's the piece at the top that just is kind of like excess. You know, he takes that off and he just throws it to the side. How is he doing that with us? Okay, he's taking things off us that we don't need. Like I believe that a lot of this isolation is showing us his sufficiency and the things we don't need. We thought we needed, but we do not need. And yes, it's hard not being with your families and being alone, but he's trying to get us back into focus here, okay? That's what I feel. Okay. So, step number 4, creates the form and or shape. So basically, you've seen it. You know, he sits there and he makes it a pot, or he makes it a cup, or he makes it a plate, and he forms it with his hands, and he does what he will with it to make the right shape that he desires. Okay, step number 5. He's using sharp tools and string to trim and refine, adding detail and making the surface flat. So while the clay is still moldable, you know, they've got these little tools that they can use like for little designs, or put like little, you know, flowers or whatever they do. And then the surface of that, where that, like if it's a cup, it's got to sit evenly. So they're going to take a string and they're going to make it perfectly flat across the top. So when you set that cup or that plate or whatever it is down, it's going to sit flat. Okay, so the next step, he covers it, he sets the vessel aside to dry. Have you ever felt like you were just set aside? Have you ever felt like that God just put you on the shelf somewhere, and that basically he forgot about you? To be honest, we can all say yeah, if you're going to be honest. But that's part of the process, okay? Step number 7. The clay, once the clay is hard, step number 7, he can go back in and add any detail by trimming. He can either set it on the wheel or use, you know, by hand, but he can get those little details just right. And this step 8 is where I got kind of happy. Step 8, add signature. He puts his name on us. Even when we feel alone, he puts his name on us, okay? His signature's on us. We are bought with a price, and we are his. You are never alone. Just remember that. Step number 9. Put on a shelf till bone dry. I didn't know, and didn't tell me how many days that was. I imagine it may be several days, maybe weeks that it takes to happen. But step 10, okay, here's where the pain, a lot of the pain is going to happen here, because it's going into a refining fire. The first firing is called a bisque firing, B-I-S-Q-U-E, bisque firing. This process transforms it to be strong and durable. The final aim is to heat the object to the point that the clay is mature. It is a 2-step process. One is called the bisque firing and the other is called glaze firing. Bisque firing refers to the first time newly shaped clay pots go through high temperature heating. To start, it must be bone dry. So what happens, I'm going to interrupt myself right there. If you're dry and you're going through a fire, what happens? You're going to ignite. You're going to it's like putting a match in a pile of leaves, you know. It's just going to. So you're already sitting there hurting. You're already lonely, you're already depressed, you're already tired. And now, God, you're going to put me in a fire? You're going to put me in the fire? Really? It says, the object is then loaded into the oven as it heat slowly begins. Slow rising is crucial. If heated too quickly, the water that is in the clay will turn to steam, which can cause the clay to burst. When the kiln reaches about 660 degrees, the chemical bond of water will be driven off. By the time the clay reaches 930 degrees, the clay becomes completely dehydrated. So here you are, you're in the fire, you're dry, you're being burnt, and you're so dehydrated. And the fire is still getting hotter, okay? But it says at this point, the clay is changed forever. Have you ever had something change you forever? Something that if someone told you would happen, you would think they were crazy, and you can't even fathom it, because it's such a it's so much to understand and fathom that if somebody were to tell you about it, you wouldn't be able to take it all in. But when it happens, and I'm not being doom and gloom on anybody, but I'm saying that everybody, if you live long enough, will have a moment that changes you forever, okay? But you can't let it change you for, you can't let it change you for the worst. It's supposed to teach us something, I think. It's supposed to teach us lessons. I don't know. But it says, at the point this clay was changed forever, okay? What started as a clump of dirt is transformed into ceramic material. The firing continues until the kiln reaches about 1730 degrees. Some finer, more expensive pieces can be heated up to 2500 degrees. At this point, the pot or the vessel has been transformed to the point that it is less fragile while retaining porosity enough to accept the application of the glaze. Just as the vessel went in, slowly the heat has to be turned off and slowly brought back down, so not to stress the vessel coming out from such a hot heat to, colder temperatures. Okay, glazing. Step 11, glazing. Glazing, I feel like it's probably the one step in this whole process that probably feels really good, because when I think of glazing, it's the substance that the potter paints and coats the vessel with to keep it, to be able to keep it from leaking out the liquid. It keeps the liquid in. It's basically a seal. It's a seal to keep the liquid in the vessel. Have you ever been glazed by the Holy Ghost? Have you ever been to the spot where you're just coming out of the fire and you're just hot and you're tired and you're thirsty and you're just like, God, where are you? Where have you been? I need you right now. I can't make it another day. I'm tired. I'm weary. I'm not able to do this any longer. And then he comes in his sweet presence and just glazes you, just puts his coating and lets that just cover you to keep all that stuff that you think is going to explode out of you. He's just going to keep that in. He's going to just protect that in your body, okay? All this is just amazing to me, okay? If I'm the only one getting blessed by this, that's fine. I guess it may have just been for me. That's okay, too. Okay. The step 12 is called glaze firing. And you're going into the fire again? Why? I've already been set on the shelf. I've already been left alone. I've already got so dry and parched. I'm so thirsty and dehydrated. I've already been into the fire once. And for the grace of God, I didn't explode. I come out and I get a glazing and thinking I'm over it. And you mean now I'm going to have to go in there again? I'm going to have to go to the fire again. Really? Do you ever just sit and ask God, really? I do. I used to think that was wrong. I was taught that that was wrong. But we can ask God questions. He wants us to. How are you going to get any answers if you don't ask questions? This firing, its purpose is to set the glaze, and it's transforming the vessels from a soft state, from a soft and fragile state to a strong state, not to be affected by water and time. Okay, so now that we've got an idea of what the vessels are, so mind you, you're sitting at a table that God's prepared with the vessels that He has put on there. And I dare to say, this is where my thought process yesterday just went, wow. Dare I say that the vessels that He places at that table aren't vessels of clay and stone, but they are us. They are us that He has molded and made into vessels of honor to sit at that table. That's just, that's my revelation, okay? That's what started this. So, let me find my place here. Okay, so when we get through and we get the table prepared, we are His vessels. The vessels He's preparing to put on the table is us. He's preparing us to sit at the table as vessels of honor, more valuable than silver, gold, or linen. And it says He's doing all this while my enemies are watching. Okay, that is such a baffling thing to me too, because basically it's saying to me, He's preparing me to sit at a table that He's got prepared for me, and my enemies are going to watch it happen. And He's not bothered by that. Okay? He's preparing us as He would that fine china, that heat, the fire, the refining, the glazing. But I guarantee you, He's not got no dollar store paper plates sitting at that table. I guarantee you that. So, what kind of vessel do you want to be? Do you want to be a vessel from the dollar store, or do you want to be a vessel of honor? You know, guess the dollar store kind is pretty easy. Everybody wants to be a vessel of honor, but nobody wants to go through it. They don't want to go through the process. They don't want to go through the molding and the pinching and the kneading and the shaping and the scraping and the fire and nobody wants to go through that. They want the outcome without putting in the work and the trials and the test and the prayer and the tears. They don't want to have to go through all that, but they want to come out as pure gold. It don't work like that. So the table He's preparing won't be ready for you. Wait a minute. The table He's preparing won't be ready for your enemies to see until you have gone through some heat. You won't be ready to sit there at that table if you are still in a paper plate stage. Sometimes we think God is late, but He's just getting ready. But He's just getting the vessel for that table prepared. Then your enemies will stand and marvel. Okay. So here's the verse. 5. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies, Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. So he's anointing me with oil, and oil always represents Holy Ghost in Scripture. So he wants me to be full of the Holy Ghost, that it overflows out of my cup, out of me, me, vessel, me, onto everything at that table. So if it overflows and comes out of me, it's going to make a lasting impression on people that are around me. It has to. You can't have God's Spirit overflowing and not affect people that are around you. It just isn't possible, okay? So my translation for that verse, okay, that's the translation after we did all that. Here's the translation. God is preparing me as a vessel of honor to sit at his table. He remains unbothered while my enemies stand and watch, because he's anointed me with so much of his Spirit that my heart overflows. Last verse. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Okay, surely means with assurance, confidence, there is no doubt. Goodness and mercy will follow me. The follow in that means pursue. Pursue means to continue along the path or route. Okay. As long as I live, okay, all the days of my life has a colon after. There's the question again. As long as I live, all the days of my life. Why? Well, here's the answer. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's why. His house is us. We are his temple. It's not a temple that is made by man. It's not bricks, it's not mortar, it's not boards, it's not concrete. It's us. So here's my translation for verse 6. With assurance and confidence, I can say without a doubt that goodness and mercy will continue with me along my path as long as I live, and because I am his vessel of honor, I will live in his presence forever. Okay, so I'm going to read it all now just as the whole chapter again, okay, with my translation. The Lord is the one who is responsible for my safety. He is always with me to provide all of my needs. He keeps me from all predators and diseases. He continues to keep me in check at all times. Even when I need pruning, I lack nothing. I have everything I need. He commands me to lay in peace. He leads me in the ways of tranquility. He returns my soul to the system imposed from above, to its former place of power. For his name's sake, he leads me in the righteous path. Yes, despite the fact that I walk in a low area between the hills and beside the stream, in an ominous oppressiveness, I won't be afraid of profound immorality and wickedness that comes from the things beyond my understanding, because you are with me. The object you use to protect me from all predators and to lead me out of trouble will also bring me comfort. God is preparing me as a vessel of honor to sit at his table. He remains unbothered while my enemies stand and watch, because he's anointed me with so much of his Spirit that my heart overflows. With assurance and confidence, I can say without a doubt that goodness and mercy will continue with me along my path as long as I live, and because I am his vessel of honor, I will live in his presence forever. Y'all, if that wasn't for nobody else, it was for me. And I think it is nothing that I'm not saying it because I'm smart. I'm saying it's because I was prompted to look and do what I did last night. And it makes me excited to do it with, I mean, if this is just one chapter, just think of what any specific chapter will bring as far as enlightenment and understanding, and bring in a whole new outlook to the way we see it. So I hope this blesses somebody. I hope it helps somebody. I hope it encourages somebody. I hope you know that even in this chaos and confusion and whatever it is that we're going through right now, there's no reason to be afraid. God's still on the throne, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what's to come. I believe that this is a time for us to get on our knees, to get right, to pray, to put things under the blood, to forgive, to love. Just be that person that he wants you to be. But don't be afraid. If you are one of his children, you are covered by his blood, and there is no reason to fear. So I hope this blesses everybody, anybody, one person, whatever. And let me know. Have a blessed day.